Artificial intelligence has revolutionized our world forever. Some have even said that it seems like AI is taking over the world. Now, not to get all iRobot on you, but that's a pretty big accusation. Some people are even afraid that the rise of AI is causing mass job losses for many people, while others have been adapting well to the new AI, and it's even really been a time saver for some people, cutting their work time in half, simplifying the editing, creation, and productivity process for photographers, videographers, designers, and artists alike. Some are even excited, maybe even mind blown working with the new AI, while others are a little bit on the fence and still skeptical about it, having mixed feelings about the new AI. Still, others just have a lot of questions. So, whichever one you are, let's dive in and answer some of the most frequently asked questions about the new Generative Fill AI. This video will tell you everything you need to know. Number 1, is it free? Everyone wants to know what is the cost of Photoshop Beta in order to use Generative Fill. So in short, the answer is no, it is not free. You do need a Creative Cloud subscription in order to download Photoshop Beta. Now, if you do not already have a Creative Cloud subscription or Creative Cloud plan, they have several different plans to choose from. They have the Photoshop plan, which is about $20.99 a month. Then they have the photography plan, which is the one that I have, which it gives you both Lightroom and Photoshop, which is $19.99 a month, and then the all apps plan, which is obviously the highest, which is $54.99 a month. So whenever you have one of these plans or you have a Creative Cloud subscription, then you are able to have access to Photoshop Beta as well, and you're able to download that and use it. Now they do have a 7-day free trial that you can try out if you're just on the fence about it, but after the 7 days, obviously then you'd have to pay full price. Unless, of course, you cancel your trial before the time's up. Number 2, okay, so we already have figured out what is the cost of Photoshop Beta. Now, how in the world do we download Photoshop Beta in order to use Generative Fill? So first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to the Creative Cloud app, and then once there, you go to Apps. Once you click into there, you're going to scroll down till you see Beta Apps, and then click into there, and you're going to see Installed Beta Apps. Now, mine already says up to date because mine's already installed, but for you, you would click into Photoshop Beta and install it, and once you do, then you're able to obviously open it and you're able to use it, and it's pretty straightforward from there. So just follow the directions. Number 3, what if I'm having trouble actually accessing or downloading Photoshop Beta? So if this is you, what you're going to do is click check for updates in the beta apps section of the Creative Cloud desktop app. And then you're going to check if there's a new Photoshop Beta app build available, an update to build endpoint 2196 or later. So you're going to want to sign out and then sign back into the Creative Cloud desktop and Photoshop Beta apps. Then you're going to want to log into Behance with your Adobe ID and enter your date of birth. If you sign in using social sign-in such as Apple, Google, Facebook, whatever, ensure that your date of birth in that account is set to public instead of private. Then once your date of birth is up to date, then you're going to want to relaunch the Photoshop Beta app to enable Generative Fill. Then you're now able to use Generative Fill in Photoshop Beta. So you have to make sure that you're 18 years or older, because if you're not 18, you're unable to use Photoshop Beta and Generative Fill. So you're just going to want to confirm that in order to use it. If you're having any trouble, it's most likely because you're either not the age requirement, you're not 18 or over, or you just don't have your date of birth updated. So you want to go to Behance and do so. So number 4 is, what is Generative Fill? Pretty basic question that you're going to want to know before you actually use it, right? So Generative Fill is the new suite of capabilities in the Photoshop Beta app. It enables you to add, extend, or remove context from your images non-destructively using simple text prompts to achieve realistic results. Adobe also describes generative fill this way, calling it the revolutionary and magical new suite of AI powered capabilities grounded to your innate creativity, enabling you to add, extend, or remove context from your images and non destructively. Using simple text prompts, you can achieve realistic results and will surprise, delight, and astound you in seconds. So, when it said AI powered, it is powered by Adobe Firefly. So if you're not already familiar with Adobe Firefly, I probably will even make a separate video on that alone. But it is all AI generated, AI based. So whenever we are using generative fill, we are using AI and we're literally putting that photo up to the cloud for it to then generate a new photo. So now that brings us to number 5. What all can I do with generative fill? So now that we know what generative fill is, obviously you want to know what you all can do with it so that you can use it to your best advantage. So with generative fill, you're able to generate objects, generate backgrounds, extend images, remove objects, and so much more. So literally the possibilities are endless. They are limitless. You can do so much with generative fill. And if you like a separate video where I outline several other things you can do with generative fill, this is just an overall basis, what most people are doing right now, but there's literally so many other things you can do with it. So will make that a separate video if you let me know down in the comments if you will be interested in learning more. Number 6, what is a contextual taskbar? So if you have already started editing or have used Photoshop Beta already, you most likely have noticed a menu or taskbar that pops up every time you use it and trying to use generative fill. But maybe you're unsure what that thing is or how to use it. So, the contextual taskbar is a persistent menu that presents the most relevant next steps in your workflow. So, for example, when an object is selected, the contextual taskbar will appear on the canvas with more curated options for the potential next step, such as select and mask, feather, invert, create adjustment layer, or fill selection. So, for example, let's say we're trying to remove the background of this photo. So we'll select the subject, and the logical next step on our contextual taskbar would be to invert our selection. So our contextual taskbar is going to show our next step as inverting our selection since we're trying to remove the background. That's just one example. Adobe also describes the contextual taskbar this way. It says, this new menu appears on the canvas with one-click access to the most common next actions so that you can quickly complete your next step. So the contextual taskbar is really changing the game and how it's simplifying the editing workflow, the editing process. So it's definitely a game changer. Number 7, how do I keep the contextual taskbar from moving? So if you've ever messed with the contextual taskbar, you will have realized by now that it tends to move a lot, which can be pretty annoying when you're trying to edit a photo because it kind of gets in the way. So in order to combat that, we hit the 3 dots and it gives us 3 different options. 1 is to hide the bar, 2 is to reset the bar position, and the 3rd is to pin the bar in position. So for me personally, when I hit the 3 dots, I usually select pin bar position. That allows me to keep the bar or the contextual taskbar locked in position where it will not move. It pins it to the screen where it stays put wherever I want it. Number 8, how do I access my contextual taskbar if mine is hidden? So we identified how we are able to pin our contextual taskbar in place if it's moving around, but what if it's not showing up at all? So in order to fix that, you're going to want to click into where it says Window, scroll all the way down to where it says Contextual Taskbar, click that, and then it will reappear. So now that brings us to number 9. How do I use the contextual taskbar? Instead of having to go to the Properties panel in order to find or locate the Remove Background buttons and the Select Subject buttons, we are able now to do so by using the contextual taskbar. Within 1 or 2 clicks, we're able to instantly remove the background, and it's totally a game changer. So for this photograph, you easily can just select your subject. All right, so once that is done, you are now able to do a number of different things. So when we click into here, we are able to now modify our selection. We're able to invert our selection. We're able even to transform our selection. We're able to create a mask, and we're also able to create a new adjustment layer. And there's also the fill selection option. So depending on what you want to do with your photograph, you're able to, um, the sky's the limit. You're able to do a lot of different things. And also, if you're doing something where it requires a text prompt, you always want to click into where it says Generative Fill and then type into the text prompt and write whatever you want to write, if you are even using a text prompt for this editing. So there, obviously, a new box has popped up that says Generative Fill. It says generate context, change existing content, replace backgrounds, extend images, remove elements, and much more. So these are all the different things we can do with generative fill, as we already outlined earlier, by using this contextual taskbar that we just mentioned. It really allows you to change and modify your selections way easier than ever before. So I'm going to start with how in the world do you even move that thing? So it tends to move around, and we already discussed how to pin it in position and also how to unhide it if it's hidden. But also, I didn't talk about if you want to move it around. It may say, for instance, in a spot where you just like to move it, you just click on that left hand side and just drag it wherever you want it to go, and you're able to move it very easily wherever you want, so it's not overlapping on the image where you cannot edit the image properly or see what you're doing. So just to move it right back, we're going to put it there, and now to pin it in place, once again hit those three dots and pin bar in position. Say for instance we wanted to remove our background, so you would select the remove background button on the contextual taskbar. And as you can see, it has just removed our background with one click. So now after removing the background, we're able to do a number of different options. We're able to subtract the mask, add to mask, feather the mask, hide the mask, or change mask view. So depending on what you want to do, now that you've removed the background with what's remaining, you can decide from there how you want to proceed. There's also another way to remove backgrounds. So first, what we would do is select our subject. You could invert that selection. Now, by inverting that selection, we have now essentially selected our background. So now, once we go and click into Generative Fill, what we're going to do is click Generate, and it should remove our background. And now we see it not only just removed our background, but it also has replaced our background. Now, if you want something specific, you can also write a text prompt in the Generative Fill text prompt area and specify what exactly you want your new background to be, and then it will generate accordingly in case you don't want to leave it up to chance. So say for instance, I would like to deselect something. So before I would have to use the keyboard shortcut, which would be Command D or Control D in order, and have to remember that. But say for instance, you want to just do one click of a button and you can't remember that keyboard shortcut. So you can easily just select deselect on the contextual taskbar, and you can deselect whatever you want to not select anymore. And bam, there we go. Super easy. So say for instance, we have our photo open up in Photoshop and we want to change the way our photograph is. So it changes basically the orientation of it. We want to flip it around either horizontally or vertically. So we come over here to this button right here. This is actually the transform button. It's just now on our contextual taskbar. So instead of having to go look for it, it now is in our contextual taskbar. Very easy access. So we're able to click and then you're able to use these up and down arrows, and you're able to flip your photograph either vertically or have it horizontally. And then once you have it the way you want it, instead of coming up all the way over here where this check mark is, all you have to do is select commit and it's locked into place. So this contextual taskbar literally simplifies our entire workflow. Number 10, can I rate and give feedback for my results generated with Generative Fill? And if so, how? In order to give feedback, you're able to either give a thumbs up if it's good, give thumbs down if it's not really up to par, or you can report it if for some reason it is generating inappropriate things, which so far that certainly hasn't happened to me, or if there's any other reason where you need to report. And that's how you're able to give feedback to Adobe based on how it's performing. Number 11, can I use generative fill for commercial work? Go check out the guidelines to know whether or not what you can and cannot do whenever using a new program or new software, anything of that nature. So I actually went on to Adobe's guidelines, and when you scroll down to number 4, it specifically says no commercial use. So it says, while generative AI features are in beta, all generated output for personal use only and cannot be used commercially. So for now, it cannot be used commercially while it's still in beta. Number 12, am I allowed to post an image that I've created or generated with generative fill on social media? So in short, the answer is yes. You can post images that you have created or generated with generative fill. However, you do need to use caution or discretion. If you are taking an image that you know is not your image, say for instance it was stock footage, or you got permission from someone else to borrow their image, you always have to get permission. You can't just take someone else's work, change it by using generative fill, and then say it's your work. So you always want to be careful. You never want to take full credit or credit if you just completely generated something off of generative fill. Like for instance, if you created an image from scratch and you posted it, you don't want to say that you took this image, obviously. You would want to give credit where it's due, and you always know you want to be honest, which I know a lot of people are dishonest on social media. So you just want to be very careful and use discretion when posting. And that kind of leads to the next question. Lastly, number 13, what are the copyright laws for a generated image? Basically, who has rights to that photo? So this is not a yes or no answer. You can't really say yes or no. This is still a very debatable, tricky situation, whether or not you can copyright an image that was generated from AI. And here is the reason. I found an article online from Petapixel. So it says generative filled art probably isn't copyrightable. So it's leaning more towards no, but here's where it gets tricky. According to the article, and I quote, it says, "We should look at what the United States Copyright Office thinks. Unfortunately, it wasn't willing to comment about specific new technologies, and that makes sense. Things are moving too quickly for it to spend time specifically addressing each new AI technology." So I don't exactly have an answer for us whether it is copyrightable or not. However, it is leaning more towards not being. It also mentioned that the office concluded that a graphic novel comprised of human-authored text combined with images generated by the AI service, such as Midjourney, constituted a copyrightable work, but the individual images themselves could not be protected by copyright, the office said. And here's why. Basically, while the images have human input, they are entirely AI generated and thus were not copyrightable. The only copyrightable material was the text, which did not involve AI at all. So basically, how can you copyright an image that's been generated when it was generated by AI, when the only thing that you as a human are doing is really just inputting text? Just a text prompt is what you're doing. So you can't really copyright that. But under current Copyright Office guidelines, the portions of an image that were created with generative AI technologies would need to be disclosed and disclaimed as part of the registration process. Now, here's where it gets a little sticky. It says the second main question on this topic is whether or not you, as a photographer, can legally stop someone from using your work as the basis of New York that is expanded using generative fill. So, on the surface, the answer seems like it will be a yes, but unfortunately, it's not cut and dry, according to this article. So, it gets kind of tricky as far as legally who owns rights to what. And it also goes on to say, we would argue that the addition of material in this way would not constitute a new work, such that the underlying copyright protection could be stripped from the original author. The USCO won't accept it as work subject to registration. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I hope you got some value out of it. I hope you got a lot of your questions answered. If there was a question that was not in this video, an FAQ that you still have that remains for Generative Fill, please definitely drop me a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. Yeah.